In the world of hip-hop, numbers never lie, or do they? Kendrick Lamar has officially crossed the jaw-dropping milestone of 50 billion streams worldwide. Yes, you heard that right, minus 50 billion. That's a number so massive, it doesn't just place him among the greats, it puts him in a league of his own. From Spotify to Apple Music, from chart-topping singles to timeless albums, Kendrick has become more than just a rapper. He's a cultural force, a storyteller, and for many fans, the voice of a generation. But here's the question everyone's debating. Does hitting 50 billion streams automatically make Kendrick Lamar the undisputed king of hip-hop? Some say absolutely yes. They point to his lyrical genius, his Pulitzer Prize, his unmatched storytelling, and his ability to balance mainstream success with deep, thought-provoking music. For them, Kendrick isn't just an artist, he's a movement. Someone who reshaped the sound, the direction, and even the reputation of hip-hop worldwide. Others argue the crown isn't so easy to claim. They remind us of legends who came before, from Jay-Z to Nas, from Kanye West to Drake, and even newer voices who are pushing boundaries today. After all, hip-hop is bigger than just numbers. Streams don't always reflect cultural dominance, street influence, or the ability to consistently set trends. So, is Kendrick's 50 billion proof of ultimate reign? Or is it just another chapter in the never-ending debate about who truly rules the rap game? One thing is certain, whether you crown him the king or not, Kendrick Lamar's impact on hip-hop is undeniable. He's sparked conversations, inspired generations, and proven that rap can be as poetic as it is powerful. But the real question is, in your eyes, has he earned the crown, or does someone else still hold it? Stay tuned, because in this video, we're breaking down the numbers, the history, and the culture to finally uncover the truth about Kendrick Lamar's place in hip-hop royalty. In the ever-expanding world of hip-hop, milestones are reached every day. But every once in a while, an artist comes along who doesn't just break records, they shatter them in ways that redefine what's possible. And right now, that artist is none other than Kendrick Lamar, a rapper, poet, and storyteller, who has officially crossed 50 billion streams worldwide. Yes, 50 billion. Think about that number for a second. We're not just talking millions, or even hundreds of millions. We're talking billions, minus 50 billion streams across platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and beyond. For context, that's more than half the population of planet Earth. If every single person in the world pressed play on a Kendrick Lamar track, that's what this number looks like. But here's the catch. While the numbers are historic, the conversation doesn't end there. In fact, this milestone has only reignited one of hip-hop's most heated debates. Is Kendrick Lamar truly the king of hip-hop? Because here's the truth. In hip-hop, numbers don't always tell the full story. Some artists move mountains with culture. Others dominate charts. Some do both. And when it comes to Kendrick, fans are split right down the middle. Some argue that his catalog, his lyrics, his influence, and now his streaming numbers make him the obvious king. Others argue that the crown still belongs to other legends, from Jay-Z to Nas to Drake, and even rising stars carving their own legacies. So today, we're diving deep. We're not just celebrating Kendrick's achievement, we're going to break down what this milestone really means. Does it cement his legacy as the king of hip-hop? Or does it raise even more questions about how we define royalty in rap? Let's start at the beginning. To understand Kendrick Lamar's rise to the top, you have to rewind to Compton, California. A city with a history so deeply tied to hip-hop that its name alone carries weight. The birthplace of legends like Dr. Dre, Eazy, and Ice Cube. Compton was already etched into hip-hop history long before Kendrick picked up a microphone. But what he brought was something different. Where gangsta rap put the raw realities of the streets on display, Kendrick brought introspection, poetry, and storytelling that dug even deeper His earliest mixtapes showed flashes of brilliance. But it was Section 80, his 2011 debut project, that really made heads turn. The album wasn't just rap, it was social commentary wrapped in masterful production. From there, Kendrick was on a path that few could have predicted. By the time Good Kid, Mad City dropped in 2012, the hip-hop world knew they were witnessing something special. The album didn't just put Kendrick on the map, it put Compton back into the spotlight in a whole new way. Critics hailed it. As a masterpiece, fans played it on repeat, and suddenly, a new conversation began. Could this quiet, thoughtful rapper from Compton be the next face of hip-hop? Fast forward to today, and Kendrick Lamar has not only answered that question, he's redefined it. Album after album, from To Pimp a Butterfly to Damn, to Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, Kendrick has delivered art that doesn't just sound good, it matters. He's won Grammys. He's won a Pulitzer Prize, something no rapper before him had ever achieved. And now he's hit 50 billion streams. But with all this success, the crown is still contested. And that's what makes this conversation so fascinating. Hip-hop isn't like pop music, where chart dominance usually equals supremacy. In hip-hop, the crown is about more than numbers. It's about influence, consistency, credibility, and respect. So the question we're asking today isn't just about numbers. It's about the bigger picture. What makes a rapper the true king of hip-hop? And does Kendrick Lamar check every box? Stick around, because in the next part, we'll dive into the rise of Kendrick Lamar, the moments that defined his career, and the milestones that led him to this historic 50 billion. And trust me, by the end, you'll have your own answer too. The question, is Kendrick Lamar truly the king of hip-hop? To understand Kendrick Lamar's rise to 50 billion streams, you have to rewind to the days before he became a global superstar. Unlike many rappers who burst onto the scene overnight, Kendrick's success came through years of careful growth, a relentless work ethic, and a style that separated him from everyone else in the game. Kendrick was born and raised in Compton, California, a city already legendary in hip-hop thanks to NWA, Dr. Dre, and countless others. But while those names often painted Compton through the lens of gangster rap, Kendrick brought something different. He took those same streets, those same struggles, and filtered them through his unique perspective, one that was deeply personal, brutally honest, and often poetic. His early mixtapes, like Overly Dedicated, started to make noise in underground circles. But the breakthrough came with Section 80 in 2011. It wasn't just another rap project. It was a statement politically charged, socially aware, and filled with stories that spoke to a generation. People didn't just listen to it, they studied it. Kendrick was proving himself not just as a rapper, but as a storyteller. But the real turning point came in 2012 with the release of Good Kid, Mad City. This wasn't just an album, it was a cinematic experience. Each track flowed into the next, weaving together a story of a teenager navigating life in Compton. Songs like Swimming Pools, Bitch, Don't Kill My Vibe, and Backseat Freestyle became instant classics. But beyond the hits, the album showcased something bigger: Kendrick's ability to balance mainstream appeal with deep, meaningful content. It's no exaggeration to say Good Kid, Mad City is one of the most important rap albums of the 2010 South. And from there, Kendrick only got bigger. His 2015 album To Pimp a Butterfly was nothing short of revolutionary. Mixing jazz, funk, soul, and hip-hop, Kendrick delivered a project that challenged the very idea of what a rap album could be. Songs like All Right became anthems for social movements, while tracks like King Kunta and The Blacker the Berry showcased his versatility. Critics hailed it as a masterpiece, and it earned Kendrick international respect as not just a rapper, but a true artist. By the time Damn dropped in 2017, Kendrick had already cemented his place among the greats. The album was a perfect balance of radio hits like Humble and Love, alongside tracks filled with depth and introspection. It was so powerful that Kendrick became the first rapper in history to win a Pulitzer Prize for music. Think about that. A Pulitzer, an award, traditionally reserved for classical or jazz compositions, went to a hip-hop album. That moment alone showed how far Kendrick and hip-hop as a whole had come. And then came Mr. Morale and Big Steppers in 2022, while more divisive than his earlier work. It proved one thing: Kendrick isn't afraid to take risks. He doesn't chase trends, he sets them. He doesn't stick to formulas. He reinvents himself every time, and whether fans love it, or debate it, they're always talking about it. That's the mark of an artist who moves culture forward. Now, let's connect all of this back to the milestone we're discussing: 50 billion streams. These aren't just numbers built on trendy singles or forgettable hits. These are billions of plays across albums that are studied in universities, referenced in social movements, and debated among critics. Kendrick's catalog isn't just popular, it's historic. But here's the deeper question: does this body of work make him the undisputed king of hip-hop? Well, that depends on how you define king. Some say it's about commercial dominance, in which case artists like Drake still hold the crown. Others say it's about lyrical mastery, where Kendrick often comes out on top. And then there are those who believe the title belongs to whoever shifts culture the most, and by that standard, Kendrick is impossible to ignore. What makes this debate so fascinating is that Kendrick himself doesn't even chase the crown. In interviews, he rarely talks about competition or titles. He focuses on the art, the message, and the legacy. And maybe that's why fans are so passionate about calling him the king, because he never asks for it. He just earns it. So, as we celebrate Kendrick's 50 billion streams, we're also celebrating the journey that got him here. From mixtapes in Compton to Pulitzer Prizes, from underground shows to stadium tours, Kendrick Lamar has built a career that's as inspiring as it is impressive. But in the next part, we need to zoom out. Because to answer whether Kendrick is truly hip-hop's king, we have to compare him to the competition. How does he stack up against other icons like Jay-Z, Nas, Kanye West, Drake, and J. Cole? What makes him different? And where does he fall? Short, when you talk about the king of hip-hop, it's never just about one person. Hip-hop has always been competitive by nature. From rap battles in the Bronx, to East Coast versus West Coast, to modern-day debates on Twitter and Instagram. The question of who's the best is what keeps the culture alive. And now, with Kendrick Lamar crossing 50 billion streams, the comparisons are louder than ever. Naturally, the first name people bring up alongside Kendrick is Drake. In terms of pure numbers, Drake has dominated the past decade like no other. He's got more Billboard #1s, more radio hits, and a long list of platinum singles that never seem to stop. From God's Plan to Hotline Bling to One Dance, Drake has been the face of commercial rap success. But here's where the debate gets interesting. While Drake controls the charts, Kendrick controls the conversation. Kendrick's albums aren't just listened to, they're studied, discussed, and dissected. Where Drake makes music built for mass appeal, Kendrick makes music built for legacy. And depending on what you value more, popularity or depth, your answer to who the king is may change completely. Then there's Jay-Z, the mogul, the godfather, the one whose legacy stretches across 3 decades. Jay has classics like Reasonable Doubt, The Blueprint, and The Black Album. On top of that, his business empire and cultural influence are unmatched. If we're talking longevity, Kendrick hasn't lived through enough eras yet to rival GA's decades-long dominance. But when you compare their first 5 albums, Kendrick's discography stands toe-to-toe with Jay-Z's, where Jay built his legend on consistency and power. Kendrick built his on reinvention and depth. Jay still holds the crown for influence, but Kendrick has a strong claim when it comes to artistry. And what about Nas? For pure storytelling, Nas's Illmatic is often hailed as the greatest rap album of all time. It painted a vivid picture of Queensbridge and showed what hip-hop could be when treated as literature. Kendrick did something similar with Good Kid, Mad City, crafting a cinematic story of life in Compton. Both men turned their neighborhoods into poetry. The key difference is that Nas never reached the same commercial heights Kendrick has. While Nas earned the respect of purists, Kendrick has managed to balance that same respect with massive streaming numbers, proving you can be both underground-minded and mainstream successful. Then we have Kanye West, one of the most influential artists in hip-hop history. Kanye redefined rap with albums like The College Dropout, 808s and Heartbreak, and My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. He proved rap could be experimental, artistic, and genre-bending. Kendrick is perhaps the only rapper of his generation who can match that spirit of innovation. To Pimp a Butterfly pushed the boundaries of what hip-hop could sound like, blending jazz, funk, and soul into something entirely new. Just like Kanye, Kendrick takes risks most artists would never dare. The difference, Kendrick does it without losing critical respect or cultural relevance. And then there's J. Cole, often viewed as Kendrick's closest contemporary. Both came up around the same time. Both focus heavily on storytelling, and both have loyal fan bases who debate endlessly about who's better. Cole represents raw honesty and everyday relatability, rapping about family, struggle, and personal growth. Kendrick, on the other hand, zooms out to tackle society, politics, and the bigger picture. Cole is the voice you feel in your daily life. Kendrick is the voice you hear when you're thinking about the world around you. Cole may not have the same streaming numbers as Kendrick, but his consistency and impact make the comparison inevitable. When you line all these names up, Drake, Jay-Z, Nas, Kanye West, J. Cole, you begin to see what makes Kendrick Lamar unique. He doesn't just shine in one area, he shines in them all. He has Nas's storytelling, Kanye's innovation, Jay-Z's cultural weight, Drake's ability to chart, and J. Cole's authenticity. Very few rappers in history have been able to combine all of those qualities at once. That's why people keep asking if he's the king. But here's the twist. Kendrick himself doesn't chase the title. He doesn't go around calling himself the king. He doesn't need to. His catalog, his accolades, and now his 50 billion streams speak louder than any claim ever could. Some fans will still argue the crown belongs to Drake. Others will insist it stays with Jay-Z. But more and more, people are pointing to Kendrick, the poet from Compton, who turned rap into art and art into history. And yet, the final answer doesn't come from charts or critics. It comes from the fans. So in the next part, we'll dive deep into what the culture is really saying. Because the people, not the numbers, are the ones who decide who truly wears the crown when it comes to deciding who the king of hip-hop really is. Numbers are only half the story. Streams, awards, and sales can prove an artist's reach. But in hip-hop, it's the culture, the fans, the critics, the streets that ultimately decides who sits on the throne. And in Kendrick Lamar's case, the conversation is as heated as ever. Let's start with the fans. Scroll through Twitter, Reddit, or YouTube comments whenever Kendrick drops something new, and you'll see just how passionate his supporters are. Too many of them. Kendrick isn't just a rapper, he's a prophet. They dissect every line, every hidden meaning, every reference in his lyrics. When To Pimp a Butterfly released, entire think pieces flooded the internet, breaking down the symbolism, from the album's cover art to the layers of meaning in songs like You and All Right. Few artists inspired that level of deep analysis. Fans see Kendrick not just as entertainment, but as someone who gives voice to their struggles. their hopes, and their identity. But at the same time, you'll also find voices questioning whether he deserves the crown. Some argue that while Kendrick is brilliant, he disappears too often. Unlike Drake, who constantly feeds the market with new music, Kendrick takes years between albums. For fans who want consistent dominance, that gap feels like a weakness. The counter-argument, of course, is that true kings don't flood the game. They control it by dropping only when necessary. It's the difference between fast food and fine dining. One gives you instant satisfaction. The other leaves a lasting impact. Critics, on the other hand, almost unanimously put Kendrick at the top. Publications like Rolling Stone, Pitchfork, and Billboard consistently rank his albums among the best of all time. To Pimp a Butterfly is often called one of the greatest albums not just in hip-hop, but in music history. Good Kid Mad City is seen as a modern classic. And damn, winning a Pulitzer Prize sealed his reputation as more than just a rapper, but a cultural icon. Think about that for a moment. Kendrick Lamar has the same award that authors, poets, and journalists dream of winning. No other rapper in history has achieved that. But the critics also raise an important point. Being the king isn't just about accolades, it's about impact. And Kendrick's cultural impact is undeniable. His song, All Right, became the unofficial anthem of the Black Lives Matter movement. His lyrics have been quoted in protests, classrooms, and even political speeches. His albums are studied in universities as modern-day literature. And yet, despite all this, he still connects to listeners on a personal level. Fans don't just see him as a distant figure. They see him as one of their own. Someone who came from the same struggles they face. That duality, being both a global icon and a relatable figure, is rare. It's why so many people argue that Kendrick deserves the crown. But the debate is far from settled. Because hip-hop, unlike other genres, doesn't operate on unanimous agreement. It thrives on competition, on arguments, on rivalries. And that's why you'll always hear people saying Drake runs the charts, or Jay-Z built the empire, or Nas is still the greatest storyteller. So what does the culture say when you zoom out? Well, it depends on which culture you're asking. For the mainstream, Drake often feels like the face of hip-hop. For the old school heads, Jay-Z and Nas still command respect. But for a huge portion of today's generation, Kendrick Lamar is the one who best represents what hip-hop can be at its highest level. He's proof that you can be thoughtful and still be successful, experimental and still be relevant, lyrical and still reach billions of streams. And maybe that's the real answer. Maybe there isn't a single king of hip-hop. Maybe there are multiple thrones, multiple crowns, depending on what you value most. But here's the thing. When it comes to striking the balance between artistry, numbers, respect, and cultural weight, Kendrick Lamar is sitting higher than almost anyone else right now. Fans know it, critics know it, and even other rappers know it. You'll rarely hear big artists discredit Kendrick because they understand what he represents. He's not just another rapper in the game, he's a benchmark, a standard, someone whose presence raises the bar for everyone else. But we're not done yet. Because in the final part of this breakdown, we're going to dig into the bigger picture. What does Kendrick Lamar's 50 billion streams mean for the future of hip-hop itself? Is he shaping a new era where art and popularity can finally exist together? Or will the crown eventually shift to someone else? Stick around, the conclusion might surprise you. So here we are at the end of a journey that started with a simple question. Kendrick Lamar has crossed 50 billion streams, but does that make him the true king of hip-hop? We've looked at the numbers, we've compared him to legends, we've heard the voices of fans and critics. And yet, one truth remains. Hip-hop has never had one single king. It's too big, too diverse, too ever-changing to be ruled by just one person forever. But if there was ever a moment where the crown leaned in one direction, right now, in this era, it leans heavily toward Kendrick Lamar. And here's why. Kendrick represents something rare in music: the balance between art and popularity. Too often, artists have to choose. Do they chase streams and radio hits, or do they make deep, meaningful art? Kendrick has proven you can do both. That's why his 50 billion streams are different from any other milestone. They aren't just empty numbers. They represent music that challenged society, that sparked protests, that inspired essays, that made people cry, think, and celebrate. But what's even more powerful is that Kendrick never asked for the title. He never crowned himself, never. Called himself the king. And maybe that's the very reason so many believe he deserves it. True royalty doesn't beg for the throne. It sits quietly, knowing its presence is enough. Kendrick doesn't compete by flooding the charts every month. He competes by leaving a lasting mark every time he drops. And that, more than any number, is what defines greatness. Now, looking ahead, the real question is, what happens next? Kendrick Lamar is already a legend. He's already carved his name into history. But hip-hop is a living, breathing culture. It never stops evolving. New names are always rising. New sounds are always being born. Someone, someday, will challenge Kendrick's position. Maybe it'll be one of today's rising stars. Maybe it'll be someone we haven't even heard of yet. That's the beauty of hip-hop. The crown is never permanent. It's earned with every generation. But here's something important to remember. Even if one day the crown shifts, Kendrick Lamar's legacy is untouchable. 50 years from now, people will still be talking about "To Pimp a Butterfly." Students will still be writing essays about "Good Kid, Mad City." Fans will still feel chills when they hear "All Right" in the middle of a crowd. The numbers may fade, the debates may change, but the art will remain. And that's something no one can take away. So, is Kendrick Lamar the king of hip-hop? Maybe the better question is, how many crowns can one man wear? The crown of lyricism, the crown of innovation, the crown of cultural impact, the crown of streaming numbers. Add them all together, and it's hard to deny that Kendrick isn't just a contender. He might be the one who redefined what being king even means. And as fans, we get to witness this in real time. We get to argue, celebrate, criticize, and analyze. And in the process, we keep hip-hop alive. Because at the end of the day, the crown doesn't sit on one head forever. It moves, it shifts, it evolves. But right now, in this moment, with 50 billion streams and a legacy already bigger than most could dream of, it's safe to say Kendrick Lamar is sitting at the very top of the throne. So whether you see him as a king, a prophet, or simply one of the greatest artists of our lifetime, one thing is undeniable. Kendrick Lamar has changed hip-hop forever. And with that, we wrap up this journey. But before you go, I want to hear from you. Do you think Kendrick Lamar is the king of hip-hop, or does the crown belong to someone else? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this debate is one that will never truly end. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe to my channel Mighty X for more deep dives into hip-hop, music, and culture. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting. And remember, the conversation doesn't stop here. This is Mighty X signing off. Until the next one.